Hello everybody, and welcome to this audio lecture. This lecture will be about the organizational context of project. And if you recall from our previous lectures, we have emphasized several times the importance of having a good relationship between the performing organization or project organization and the parent organization. And we also have emphasized the importance of having clear roles and responsibilities in the project and during the project. So the objective of this lecture is to provide you or to describe the main categories of project organizations. How can we structure them? We differentiate between, for instance, project structures, pure project structures, and we also have something called the classical or business as usual project structure. And then we have this hybrid or combined structure, which combines actually a little bit from the classical and from the project structure. We call it matrix organization. And our goal here is to explain the advantages and disadvantages of these different structures, and when, at least, and not the least, when can we use them. And we also will look at the challenges caused by these organizational factors in project. For instance, in the matrix organization arises many problems that could hamper and could reduce the productivity of the project. Then how can we deal with that? And then there is another factor. It's called the organizational culture or organizational factor. This is like a software of the mind for the organization. It dictates how we do relations, how we communicate, how we trust each other, what's important for the organization. And then all these factors reflect themselves and impact the way we do project management. So we will try also to touch on this issue as well. First, let us look at the different types of organization. In general, we distinguish between the parent organization and the project organization. For instance, if Aker Solutions is about to conduct a major project for Statoil, indeed, not everybody from Aker Solutions go and join that project. There are some people who will be assigned that task from Aker Solution. And this group of people, we call them the project organization. And the parent organization, in this case, is Aker Solution. And what Akers do? Akers do the line management, the routine management tasks. They hire resources, they allocate resources to each individual project. They look after all these human relations in the organization. They who hire, they are they who write contracts, and they are they who are developing these resources. And the parent organization is also a gatekeeper, in the sense it is actually up to the parent organization to start a project or to bid for a contract. It is not the project organization who does that. Project organization has one task: to lead, coordinate resources to achieve the project goal or the project mission. The parent organization is structured, usually, of course, is structured in functions. You have at the top the CEO, and then under this person there are a lot of departments, a lot of functions. Let's say marketing, let's say production, let's say economy, development, whatever. It depends on the type of the organization. And under each department there are resources, people, facilities, and support facilities that report to this chief of that particular department. So information here, as you can see, is top-down information. Top managements take decisions, and then they prioritize how these resources will be used, and then the information goes down to these specialized resources. Now, in each department, as you can see, you have one specific speciality, one specific discipline. Under the economy, you will find people who dealing with accounting, people dealing with contracts, people perhaps dealing with sales and new investments. So they are the people who are dealing with the money, sort of. And then people who are dealing with research and development, they have perhaps some scientists, some technical engineers for testing, for laboratory, for quality testing, and so on. This form of organization has actually existed since Taylor wrote his book, Scientific Management. He said the best way to run an organization is to group the people into functions, and each function you should have the best people, and then you can cooperate between or you can these functions could cooperate horizontally. Now, when we are doing projects, as if you recall, is not really an ongoing operation. Projects are one-time effort. You do it in order to achieve a certain goal. Then how are we going to select people from the parent organization and allocate them to a project? In project management literature, one can say that we distinguish between three types of project organizations. We have the one that is so-called classical organization, which means that it is the same as the functional organization. We don't do anything different. It's business as usual. The projects are executed within the boundary of the line organization. We don't create another structure. Everything is done within the boundary of the line organization. And then we have something called the full authority. Full authority, which or sometimes it's called heavyweight project organization, or sometimes it's called project structure. Here, actually, this project organization is taking out from the traditional boundary lines of the parent organization or the line organization. We create a new temporary organization and we take it out from this line management functions. And we have something in between. It is usually called the shared authority. Shared authority, it means that yes, we create a project organization, but we don't really give them enough authority. The authority is always shared between the project managers and the line managers. It's like a compromise. And this compromise can be divided further into a weak organization, weak matrix, strong matrix, and balanced matrix. This matrix organization works especially if you don't have enough resources to do projects and enough resources to do your traditional organizational work, the routine work that sustained the organization. Then you have to share between them. And it is usually called the Nordic model. Now, how this functional structure looks like. It looks like a normal organization. It says that all the projects or each project is run in one line. And the line manager is also a project manager, which means that a line manager could be a leader for several development projects, for instance, if the projects are about developing new things. And this project leader, who is the same as the line manager, He selects resources. He tells these people, you work 10 hours here, you focus today on that, you focus today on other things. And this line manager controls everything, the budget, the time, resources, and all that. And if they need assistance from other departments, they contact this department that they need resources from. For instance, if they are doing a research project and they need some assistance from the production department regarding production tools, production strategy, and so on, then they contact the vice president for production, and then the vice president for production find time and give the assignment to one particular person from the production. As you can see, this kind of communication can takes a lot of time. So uh, it has some advantages and it has some disadvantages. The advantages, it is everything remains under the firm design. We don't change anything. The line managers are in charge, whether it's an ongoing operation or whether it is or whether it is a project. And of course, when people are working in these projects, they foster developments. That is in-depth knowledge. They become even better and better and better and better because they are working within their specialized fields. And not the least, the project team member remained connected with the line organization. The loyalty is still there. They have one boss, and that boss is their boss all the time. It doesn't really matter if they are working on projects or on an ordinary operations. So here we really keep the status quo of the organization. But the weaknesses, one of the most fundamental weakness is what we call a functional siloing. What does that mean? It means that usually these line managers, they are very much concerned with the prosperity of their own departments. They are unable to see how a project will impact the entire organization. And if you recall again, one important thing about project is this impact, is this outcome, how it will impact the entire organization, how it will create value for the entire organization. One of the weaknesses of this structure is failing to see this picture. So they don't have this bird eye view when they work on projects. And another disadvantage is this lack of customer focus, because these people are very much concerned with the technique and how they work with in-depth Korea. And as you can see, projects takes longer time because first you communicate vertically and then you go horizontally and then you go back vertically. So this cross-functional communication doesn't exist actually. Everything has to do with the top management. So projects takes longer time. And the focus is not the impact, but it is always the process itself and adhering to the requirements of that particular department. And for that reason, they sometimes, rather than optimizing the situation or the work for the project itself, they do the opposite. They optimize the projects themselves to fit with the context. Now, on the other hand, we have this full authority project organization or heavyweight or project structure. Here, actually, we have our own department for projects, and we say we have, for instance, as you can see from this diagram, a project called Project Alpha and another project called Project Beta. And we take resources from each department and we allocate them to this project. We say, you guys here, you work only with this project alpha, and you guys here, you work only with this project beta. You don't get involved in any other project. And your boss is the project manager. He or she decides. So you see, we here create another organization, and this organization has full authority or almost full authority. All decision is made in the project. So this project structure, right, have many good advantages. Like the project manager is the sole authority of the project. This results in improved communication inside the project organization, improved communication between the project organization and the client. If decision making is very quick. That's why they call sometimes this type of organization tiger teams or task force. They go, people working all the time on one particular project, and bang, give the results. And here, of course, you don't create an expert in telecommunication, but you create an expert in managing projects. The weakness, on the other hand, is, of course, if you don't have enough resources, enough people, you can't use this kind of structure. And another problem that sometimes when the project gets longer, the loyalty shifts from loyalty to the main organization or the parent organization and go to the project itself. And another problem that the organization or the parent organization loses this knowledge. Think about it. People, 5, 6, 10 people who are experts in their field are taken out from the organization and assigned to only one single project. Then what happens? You are, in a way, are draining the parent organization from these resources. This knowledge, the knowledge they have, cannot be shared anymore. And another problem with this kind of organization that our workers are unassigned at project end. This is because at the end of the project, which takes a longer time, usually these people have to come back to the parent organization and start looking for opportunities. Because the link between them and the parent organization was broken underway. Another level, it's a higher level of this project structure, is what we refer to the full authority, heavyweight. Here actually is not the organization itself is organized as projects. They don't do any line work, any line management. They have, our organization are doing projects, and we are divided into these project portfolios, and we have project category 1, project category 2, project category 3, and so on. So here actually the organization has no line structure, or has very, very, very little line structure, minimal functional structure. Maybe it's for support, maybe for accounting, but it is not a main function in the organization. As you can see, here is focus is on external customer all the time. And the project manager here is almost like a line manager with only one project to look for. It's called, actually, this kind is called project director. It's a heavyweight authority. Now the third level is called the matrix organization. Matrix organization is in fact compromise. We want to run our tasks using project structure, but we don't have resources, and we have ongoing operations that we should always look after and take care of, and we don't have enough resources to do both. Then we try to share these resources. So actually, this matrix structure is about the best possible way to share resources. And how this is how it looks like. You can see at the top here you have board of directors, chief executive officer, vice president projects, vice president this, vice president that, and each one of them has resources under he or she, and the project manager has uh, resources, has tasks, different type of projects, and here they share resources. For instance, they say from this department, Project Alpha will use 2 resources from marketing, but they will not be working full time, part time, and 1.5 resource from production, let's say 50% each one of them, and 1 resource from finance, 25%. And the rest, this person can work on other projects or on other line assignments. So here, as you can see, we split resources and we share them between the 2 main functions, projects on the left-hand side and line management on the top row here. So what is the strengths here? As you can see, here we can add, put in, take out resources according to the needs. And we emphasize both line management and project management equally. Hopefully, if this works fine, then it becomes like a textbook example of excellent coordination and communication between functional units. The communication here is not only top down or horizontal, it is across diagonal, semi-diagonal communication. And again, it's about maximizing the lack of resources. The weaknesses are many. Now, you as a person who are working in this organization, you have 2 bosses usually, and maybe 3, and maybe 4, because maybe you are working on several projects at the same time, and you have one boss, the line manager. Then who is really your boss here, in that sense, in that situation? And another problem is all the time there should be some sort of negotiation between the party. I need a resource X, and the other one, I really need resource X, and the other one, I say, I have a deadline and I need this resource X. How can we share this particular person? Of course, sadly, in many situations, the overload goes on that X rather than sharing X. It becomes overloading X. And this impacts, of course, these workers. They become all the time have a problem how to balance these competing project and functional demand. So here you have a situation where there is a lot of stress. In fact, with this matrix structure, everybody is stressed. Everybody can feel panic. The project manager, they feel panic because they lack day-to-day authority over resources. They are the line management that still decide because the line organization is still there. So the project managers feel stress. They are not able to control their resources. And sometimes they feel not only not able to manage, but sometimes they feel resistance. If the workers prefer, for instance, to work on another project rather than their own projects, then these project managers will feel stress because of this resistance and because of lack of commitment from other team members. There is always another problem, a problem of conflicts, in the sense that, for instance, project managers who are juniors project managers and they try to delegate assignments to senior employees usually meets a strong resistance because these senior employees thinks that these project managers really don't know anything. They are so young, can't really trust what they say. So this is like a dilemma, an issue project managers all the time has to deal with. And maybe another problem that maybe didn't appear on the slide here is this problem of duality, as I told you. If you are an employee and you have project manager 1, project manager 2, and your line manager, and you are supposed to report to each one of them, and you're supposed to have loyalty to each one of them, to which one of them you will have your loyalty? And this reporting time also, or this reporting takes also some time. So working on matrix organization, although it is good for the company, but it's no good for the people, the resources, is no good for the project manager, and it's no good for the line manager. It can be easily come to a conflict situation. So in the classroom, I was thinking to give you this simple assignment and ask you to think about some good measures on how to deal with that. Well, I asked the same question to many project managers, and I asked them to tell me how did they manage this lack or these problems associated with the matrix organization. And here are some of the actions or some of the measures they have suggested. Rule number 1, for instance, they say any company should have some rules for how many projects each employee should be involved in concurrently at the same time. You can't let people get involved in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or as they wish. No, because you cannot perform anymore. And they said another proposal came that every project that we start at this organization, the line management, all the top leadership must be involved and participate actively in the planning phase or the project initiation phase. They should be there so that they know how this project is important, why this project is important, and what are the expectations from the project to these people. Some other project managers, they have suggested actually some sort of contract between the project and the line organization, a written project, a written contract, which says, for instance, we have a resource, a person called A, and I will have this person 50% of the time in 3 months, starting, for instance, from August until the end of November. This is my time. I want A to be with me. And this becomes a commitment. And others say, again, it's important with these clear roles. That's why we need to have a kick-off meeting at the beginning of the project so that we align project staff to this project, to tell them how important this project for them. You know, we all the time in this course, perhaps we talk about alignment at top level, alignment with other stakeholders, but you also need to align the project downwards with the people who will do the project. This alignment can happen if they know what they are supposed to do, why their roles are important, and how they can contribute to the effectiveness and efficiency of these projects. Other project managers suggested actually some sort of a model that help the organization to prioritize between projects. Let's say if you have a set of resources and everybody wants them, all projects, all operations, how can we prioritize between them? And this company have this rule. First for them is operations, safety in operations. So if one resource is needed between many other tasks, first thing, safe operations. Number 2, integration completion. Like, say you have a project where we need to connect together several sub-projects, and this resource is critical resource for this completion process. So it goes for the completion. And then the third priority goes to the concern initiative. That is a project that was initiated by the company, by the top leadership. And finally, the last priority is a new development project. Because you know why? Because a new development project actually it's very difficult to have specified time frame or cost frame. They are kind of like breakthrough, looking for a breakthrough. That's why you are totally uncertain about how much a resource is needed. That's why it is not prioritized as number one. So this is one way to control uh, resources when you don't have many of them. Some people say you need to have a training on how project should work, and this is actually very interesting. From my talks with other project managers and other organizations, I realized one important thing. Actually, the problem is not in these resources. The problem is not the project managers. The problem usually that the top leadership of typical line organization, they are not aware of the complexity and the urgency, and the uncertainty and ambiguity and complexity associated with project works. So their expectations to projects is similar to their expectations to an ordinary work. And this creates a big conflict. So one way to reduce that conflict is to teach top leadership actually what is working in projects mean. Another project managers came with this idea like information. Make your project known to the rest of the organization. Make everybody knows what your project actually means. What is the impact? What is the outcome of your project? Perhaps this will create alignments, create better buy-in, and people will understand that you really need resources when you say that you need them. Other project managers said that, well, if you really want to make sure that the project manager will be heard, then you should enhance project manager authority through excellence, which they say it means that you shouldn't really pick any project manager. If you have a junior person, you should really first go through a mentoring process, giving this person the opportunity to learn the business, to learn how the business works, and then create trust around this person, and then use this person as a project manager. But do not use junior project managers, because maybe they understand how it is to do project management, but maybe they don't understand the business itself yet. And that's why some other people will not listen to them. They feel that they don't have enough credibility to lead such a project.